So let's try to rig this simple humanoid character again, this time with the Rigify tools. First of all, let's activate Rigify. To do so, we are going to go to Edit and choose Preferences. Go to the Add-ons section and in the search field type Rigify and it should pop up. Put a check mark next to Rigify and you should be good to go. And then you need to go to Save and Load. Locate Autorun Python scripts and then put a check mark on it as well. You need to activate this option in order for Rigify to work properly. Then you can save preferences and I can close the preferences window. What happened after we activated the add-on? If we press Shift A, on the armature, there are a few new presets, a few new armature types that we can choose from. And one of them is the human meta rig. There are a couple of animals and basic human and basic quadruped. So in this case, we are going to use the basic human because our character is very basic. The same as in the previous tutorial, I'm going to turn on in front and axis. Before we go any further, let's follow the workflow that I mentioned in the previous videos. Step 1 is to make sure that our character is ready for rigging. First of all, I'm going to hide the meta rig for now. I'm going to make sure that my character is facing front. So if I switch to front view, my character's face is visible. That means he's facing front. His feet should be on the ground of the 3D world. The ground is represented by this red line, so I can see that the legs are aligned with the floor. Pivot point should be in the center of the 3D world. So if I go to the N panel under item with the mesh selected, the location is set to 0, 0, 0, so that is good. Scale and rotation should be applied. Rotation is set to 0, 0, 0 and scale is to 1, 1, 1, so that means they're applied. Model to scale. My model is it's a humanoid character and in the Z-axis its height is basically 1.8 meters, so that looks good. The humanoid should be in the A pose. So if I look again through front view, I can see that my character is standing straight and the arms are slightly bending downwards. And this is what they call the A pose. There's also T pose where the arms are extended to the sides. T pose is no longer in use. People generally prefer the A pose. Non-humanoid characters should be in neutral position. I'll show you an example of a dog. And then we need good topology. In this case, my character is super simple. The topology should be good enough for this exercise. So first we need to create a meta rig. And in this case, we are going to use the beginner workflow, which means we are going to be using the pre-existing meta rigs. So I'm going to go into my 3D view and I'm going to press Shift A, Basic Human. I'm going to check in front and axis. Let's delete the rig that I created previously. And let's rename this rig Base Human Meta Rig. Having meta rig in the name is not necessary, but I name it like that so it's easily identifiable. The next step in the process is to align the meta rig to our character. With the meta rig selected and in object mode, scale, by pressing S, scale the whole meta rig down a little bit until it fits our character. And this, by the way, is an intentional mistake that I'm making. I'm going to do this often in this course. So I'm going to go into edit mode. And I want to start aligning this meta rig to my character. A very handy tool that we have is under Tools, under Options, there is this XAxis Mirror. If you activate it, any changes that you make on one side of the rig will be automatically mirrored to the other side. So I'm going to adjust the collarbone, the arm, the hand. The legs look almost okay, but Let's move them a little bit to the side, like this. These two bones here are breast bones. We don't need them, we can actually delete them, but I'm going to leave them in this example. Things seem to be not very well aligned from the top view, so let's switch to top view. A way to select the whole hand is by hovering over the bone chain and pressing L. And I'm going to move it a little bit. It's nice that this chain is slightly bent in the elbow, but I think in my case that's little bit too much, so I'm going to move it just slightly. Hand is looking good now. Let's go into side view. I need to align the leg from the front view. You need to keep in mind that the leg in Rigify includes this heel bone, so we are going to adjust it in a second. The heel bone is very important. From the side view, it should be right where the heel meets the ground. I'm going to disable in front for a second. It needs to be about as wide as your actual foot. So let's make it about as wide as the actual foot. To see more clearly what this does, I'm going to go to object mode, then I'm going to select the character. I'll go to edit mode again. I'm going to select this part of the leg and I'm going to make it wider. Without mirror. I just want one side to be a little bit wider. And you can follow along if you want. I'm going to go back to the MetaRig and I'm going to deselect X mirror for a second. And I'm going to make this bone a little bit wider to match my character. In edit mode, let's turn back on the XAxis Mirror option and in front. I think I need to align the spine. So let's, again with L, select the whole spine and these additional bones here and move them so they're more in the center of the body. Even though anatomically the spine should be at the back, it's better to put it over here. It allows for better deformations. So that is looking good. Before I move the spine, if I undo, you can see that the spine and the head and the neck were perfectly aligned. Now I'm going to redo everything and now you can see that they are disconnected now. This is another intentional mistake that I'm making. I'm just going to move the collarbone a little bit, make sure it's aligned well, and yeah, that should do it. I'm going to go to edit to object mode and I'm going to look for the Rigify buttons tab under the armature tab, and here is the very important generate rig button, and I'm going to go right ahead and click it. We get an error. The problem is, let's do this again and look at the error. It says bone position is disjoint. That's the problem with Rigify. It kind of gives you an error message and the error message can be hard to read. In this case, the problem is that the neck bone and the spine bone need to be perfectly aligned. And there is a way to let Rigify know that I want my spine and head to be disconnected, but in the pre-built MetaRig, it is set up so they need to be perfectly aligned. So let's align them. I'm going to select the last nodule of the neck. I'm going to press Shift-S, selection to cursor. And then selecting the last nodule of the spine, I'm going to press Shift-S, selection to cursor. And that gives me perfectly aligned spine and neck. Back to object mode, and I'm going to press Generate Rig. As you can see, it did work. However, the generated rig seems to be quite a bit bigger than the MetaRig. Why is that? The reason is due to this intentional mistake that I did at the beginning. I scaled the MetaRig down in object mode, and this gives me the scale of 0.9. That's why I get a generated rig that is not the same size as the MetaRig. I don't want that to happen. What I'm going to do is first selecting the MetaRig and then going to Object, Apply Scale. And now if I generate my rig again, we see that it's perfectly aligned with my character and with my MetaRig. The next step in the process is to set up bone groups and layers. But with the pre-made metrics, that's already done for us, so we can skip that step. Then we press generate, which we already did. And now it's time to test our rig. I'm going to select my character mesh, then the generated rig, press Ctrl P and choose with automatic weights. And now if I select the rig and go to pose mode, I can grab, for example, this handle and I can start moving my rig around. I can play with the legs and you see that we have working IK for the legs. We have working IK for the arms, and we can even, from the end panel, there's this option to switch to FK. I'm going to explain all the options later on. This is just a quick crash course in Rigify. We have lots of cool options and we barely did any work for them. We have bendy and stretchy bones. We have these tweak bones that can make our character really stretchy and bendy. So yeah, that is the really essential Rigify workflow in a nutshell. I'm going to select the generated rig, go to pose mode, select all bones and go to pose, clear transform all, so my rig will be back to normal. If I select this handle here and choose the rotate gizmo in local mode, and if I rotate, oh yeah, it's this one, it's not really visible over here, but if I switch to wireframe, you can see it. If I rotate it in the y-axis, my foot kind of rotates from side to side. And let's do the same over here with this wider leg in y direction. And you can see that again, it kind of rotates as we would expect. And this, if I unhide again the metric, this is defined by the width of this bone, which I totally misaligned. So let's uncheck X mirror and set this up properly. Now it should work. With my metric and my rig visible, I'm going to press generate rig, hide the metric, and if I go to pose mode, select this handle and rotate it on the y-axis, I get the behavior that I expect. Save your file and proceed to the next part of this chapter. There, we'll quickly rig a dog, and I'll show you more common problems that you want to avoid. To support me, press like, and if you want to be notified for future chapters, subscribe and turn on notifications.